Good afternoon and welcome to the Clare Boothe Luce Center for Conservative Women. We are an all-women organization that specializes in the education and mentorship of young women to empower them to live happier, more meaningful lives and contribute to a stronger, freer America. My name is Kimberly Begg. I am the president of the Luce Center, and I am delighted that you are here with us at today's Conservative Women's Network event, our last of 2024. This has been an incredible year. We are just coming off of our Nashville Student Summit, where we had 100 participants, including students from 16 states and 24 schools, hear from an amazing lineup of strong conservative women. Allie Beth Stuckey spoke in Nashville, as did Katie McFarland, Paula Scanlon, Amanda Collins-Johnson, Lauren Huseman, and Liz Wheeler, who is our 2024 Woman of the Year and the cover girl of our 2025 Great American Conservative Women Calendar. And we have a copy of this calendar for each of you. This year, we also had campus lectures across the country, our annual Washington, D.C. Summit, 2 college women's luncheons, and our 11-week summer internship, where we hosted 8 college women from across the country for a busy, fun-filled summer of media training, etiquette training, firearms training, and more. And of course, we had our monthly Conservative Women's Network events, where we gathered women of all ages to hear from Katie Gorka, Mary Margaret Olahan, Katie Faust, Erica Bacchiacchi, and other amazing speakers. It is fitting that we conclude our CWN series this year with today's speaker, because everything we do here is a fulfillment of her incredible vision and work preparing and promoting conservative women. It is an honor to welcome and introduce Michelle Easton, the Luce Center's founder, chairman of the board, and longtime president, as today's speaker. It's hard to believe, but I first met Michelle 27 years ago at a Luce event, a college women's luncheon in Washington, D.C., when I was a college student at Rutgers University. It was truly one of the most formative experiences of my life. I don't have sisters, and I wasn't in a sorority in college. The truth is, I had almost no experience building camaraderie with other women until that luncheon. I recognized immediately what a neat and valuable opportunity it was to learn and discuss conservative ideas in the company of like-minded women. It's an experience that never left me, and it very much informs our work here at the Luce Center today. Many of you know Michelle and are familiar with her impressive resume, but I'll share it now as a reminder of the experience she brings to our work here. Before founding the Luce Center, Michelle received presidential appointments from both President Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush, with Senate confirmation for her position at the U.S. Department of Education, serving the full 12 years of their administrations. In 1994, Virginia Governor George Allen appointed her to the State Board of Education, whose members later elected her president of the board. Throughout her tenure as president of the Luce Center, she established our core programs, our summits and seminars, college women's luncheons, campus lectures and internships, all while being a devoted wife and mother to her 3 sons. In 2021, she shared her many insights from working with young women over the course of decades in her acclaimed book, How to Raise a Conservative Daughter. This is a fantastic collection of advice about how to pass on an appreciation of faith, family, hard work, and other conservative values to help young women resist leftist influences and flourish in the world. And you will all be receiving a copy of this amazing book, and Michelle has graciously agreed to sign a copy for each of you. Michelle will be speaking on the lessons of this book today. Please join me in welcoming Michelle Easton.
Very nice. Thank you so much, Kimberly, for that kind introduction. And I'm happy to be back here at the Luce Center for the December CWN. I want to start by thanking Kimberly for inviting me and thanking Kimberly and all the staff for the wonderful work they continue to do here to prepare and promote conservative women. I spent 30 years here in this center as the president and shifted to chairman, and Kimberly graciously took on the president's job this past March. So it's my treat, truly, to come back and talk with you about what might be called my magnum opus. It's a book that took me almost 30 years to write, covering many of the most important things I learned over the decades here at the Luce Center. Now, people ask me, why did you write a book on how to raise a conservative daughter? Because, I mean, if your family's conservative and you take your girls to church or to synagogue, won't she turn out to be conservative? It used to be that way back when some of us were growing up. But today, the challenges with toxic social media, radical indoctrination in the schools, corrosive messages from Hollywood and the entertainment industry, the leftist media, the chances your daughter or granddaughter or niece or neighbor will become a conservative are not always so good. It can be really tough raising a daughter and really, really tough raising a conservative daughter. So my goal with the book is for readers to start thinking about their conservative values and how to instill them through practical, real-life applications to strengthen and support their daughters' hearts and minds. And if they do that, they will have given their daughter a priceless and enduring gift. And few things in life are more important than that. Working with the outstanding college women and some of the top high school girls, our major focus at the center has been preparing young women for conservative leadership and celebrating our best conservative adult women leaders. And over the years working here, over the decades, I noticed that there were certain things in the young women's lives, their upbringing and their growing up, that many had in common. And I have been asked many times by parents, by grandparents, by supporters, and others who see the young women we work with in our outreach programs. They say, what is it that makes these wonderful young women you have with you into such great young conservative women? So that's why I wrote the book, to share what I had learned over the years. It's a guide for parents, for grandparents, for teachers, for anyone in a position to influence raising daughters who are confident, informed, and passionate. One friend told me, I was very happy to hear, she said, from here on out, the book will be her gift for all new baby girls. I said, yes. And I'm very pleased that we're reaching a larger audience with this book, as many young women still in school have told me they've learned from the book as well. So what I do in the book is I lay out in 11 chapters key items to raise a young woman to become a smart and solid conservative. So I'm going to run through some of the key points, and then we should have time for questions and comments, and then I'll sign your books if you like. The key is to help daughters understand they are loved by God. From there, I describe how to move daughters forward through understanding the value of life, of work, of money, of deferred gratification. One longtime supporter, a very good gentleman, said to me, Michelle, is faith really the most important? Yes, it really is. The reason I started with chapter 1 titled, Self-Worth Flows from God, Not Government, is because religious faith and freedom are inextricably linked. Why do totalitarian governments in communist China, in North Korea, in Cuba, work so hard to impose atheism on their people? It's because people of faith know their self-worth comes from God, not from government, And this threatens these dictators' control and power. These are brutal, godless societies, tyrannies, where they torture, they beat, they imprison, sometimes they kill people of faith. It's to crush freedom movements and enforce that atheism. Think of today's American socialists: Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer. They encourage people to be dependent on government because government is a higher power to them, often the stand-in for religion. And left-wing leaders like AOC and Bernie Sanders, they love to offer so-called free stuff, like college, like housing and food. They want people to look to government as the higher power in our lives, not God. So it's very important to help our daughters understand the connection between faith and freedom. And knowing she is uniquely made and unconditionally loved by God will be the cornerstone of her conservatism. So much of what is conveyed to young women suggests that affirmative action, government-funded healthcare, housing, and other taxpayer-funded free stuff are what give girls self-worth. But dependence on government programs fuels socialist and leftist beliefs, since government is their God. Our children hear a lot about self-esteem, especially in government schools. Self-esteem, it's okay, it's a feeling of satisfaction in yourself. My baby sister was a teacher in Cape Cod government schools for many years, and she was told, all the teachers were told, that every day, throughout the day, they must tell each child how awesome they are. But Carol told me they weren't awesome. And on occasions when they were exceptional, the praise had been so overdone it was meaningless. Surveys do show that American children have very high self-esteem. But self-worth is different. It's a deeply conservative concept. It's the greatest gift you can give your daughters, the knowledge that she is uniquely made and unconditionally loved by God. Now here's a great dinner table conversation to start with your children or your grandchildren or your neighbors when they're young. Why is America so exceptional? They probably won't be taught in school, public or private schools, that in 1776, our country was founded on an idea unique in the history of the world at the time, that our rights come from God, not from government. The founders of our country only formed government to protect these God-given rights. Leftist propaganda and so much of what is taught in the schools never discuss America's unique nature. They just say it's America's arrogance or our wealth that makes us say we're exceptional. And they promote crazy ideas, like the New York Times 1619 project that defines American history as a history just of defending slavery. This was 1619, was 400 years after the first slaves from Africa came to Virginia. That's how they picked that date. And it was published, and it's taught in many schools now. It's part of curriculums that America's founders' primary goal was to preserve slavery. You know that America was founded to free Americans from the tyranny of a king, King George. But the 1619 project curriculum teaches children it wasn't about King George, it was about preserving slavery. Socialists and other leftists love to tear America down and dwell on our past challenges instead of our greatness. And even well-raised children today struggle to articulate the ideals that make our country special. Talk to the young people you know about the things that make our country great. The key is that in America, rights come from God, not government. And our founders created government to protect those God-given rights. Now here's an important point. You have to let your children see you read. What great role modeling that is. Your daughters need to read good books, including good history books, to know there has never been a freer, more prosperous nation than America. And there's so many wonderful classical books for girls. And I recommend a number of good books for your girls to read in a couple of places in How to Raise a Conservative Daughter. It's not a complete list, but it's some to start with. Now, too many parents still don't understand how powerful social media is. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, they are immensely influential and contain harmful content. Pornography is widespread. Fake lives are created that show flawless beauty and extravagant materialism. Social media sells an idealized version of life that's not reality, as well as most of it promotes liberal positions on all the policy issues. And TikTok, the communist Chinese government uses it to influence our children as well as collect data about them. So, if you can eliminate it for your children or your grandchildren or your nieces and nephews, good for you. But it's not practical for most parents to eliminate social media. At least make them wait until they're much older to get a telephone, a cell phone. I have a granddaughter, and the plan is she has to be 16. That would be probably when she's driving, before she's allowed to get a phone. I hope that my son and his wife stick with that. Except don't allow TikTok. Do not allow your kids on TikTok. But curtailing screen time is a good place to start, if you can't eliminate it entirely. When my kids were growing up, and they're in their 30s and 40s now, it was before social media, but TV was the great time waster, mindless time waster. Our family rule was no TV on school nights. That worked pretty well. 5 nights a week during the school year. Instead, they did their schoolwork, they read books, they played games with other children, they did sports, they practiced music, and they were better for it. So in How to Raise a Conservative Daughter, I suggest restricting social media instead of allowing your child to settle for an empty online life. And also teach them that the internet is forever. They should never put anything on the internet that they wouldn't be proud to have their mother, their grandmother, or a future employer see. There are so many more fulfilling pursuits for our children: church groups, art, service to older family members, neighbors. Now, this may surprise you. Over the 30 years that I was here, do you know the most consistent trait I've seen in the outstanding young women we work with? That they had jobs and learned when they were of the right age that hard work is a virtue. That's chapter 4. Once they're old enough, daughters should have an opportunity to have jobs and responsibilities that teach them the value of hard work. Now, remember when the left started to promote this idea that there should be economic security for all who are unable to work? Unable or unwilling. They said unwilling to work. It's unthinkable to conservatives. We mostly believe that when work and income are separated, it's usually bad. Most people remember their first job with a smile, and they learn from it. My first job at 16 was in a local movie theater, running the popcorn stand and selling tickets. Now, my parents were very careful. My brother was also an usher at the theater, and so he kept an eye on me, and they knew the people that ran the theater. Girls have got to be in safe places. But I remember getting my first paycheck. Minimum wage was $1.25. That shows you how old I am, ladies. But suddenly, I saw this big chunk of taxes taken out. And my father, who was very policy-oriented and very much into things we needed to do in America, his dinner table discussions about taxes being too high and preventing our middle-class family from doing all the things we wanted to do. Suddenly that made sense, and it was no longer just one of Dad's academic discussions. Think about your job. Most people do think of their first job fondly, and what you learn. Now, one of my sons learned, I am going to start to study hard because I don't want to stack shelves at Target for the rest of my life. Now, there's nothing wrong with stacking shelves at Target. You know, any honest work is honest work. But he got serious about his schoolwork, went on to study philosophy, and received a fine, well-rounded education at Hillsdale College. And he's doing very well. But without that job, working a couple of years at Target, a couple of summers it was, I don't think that would have happened with him. Now, Another key part of raising a conservative daughter is for her to learn that a woman's differences are her strengths. That's chapter 5. The left's propaganda that men and women are just the same is a crazy lie, and we all know it. Show her there are not differences between men's and women's intelligence, but then teach her to celebrate the natural variations between men and women, the breathtaking miracle of childbirth elevates females. Many in the feminist left, the women's studies programs in colleges, and all those leftist organizations teach young women that having children is a patriarchal burden and an inconvenience that will just limit their success. We know that's false. Now, maybe your daughter is not a girly girl. Some girls are tomboys. They'd rather climb trees and make mud pies than play with dolls. And that's fine. Allow your daughter to be who God made her to be. Girls move through phases, and today's tomboy may be tomorrow's beauty queen. You don't know what it is that's around the corner, and that's part of the fun of raising girls. But the point is to protect girls and trust their natural development. Allow your daughter's femininity to blossom in God's perfect timing. That used to be well understood, but today, people in the schools, the popular culture, most of the Democrat Party leaders, the woke culture are obsessed with the false notion that your biological sex doesn't determine whether you're a boy or a girl. Some say you're not allowed to say boys don't wear dresses or only women can give birth to babies. Now, think about how you define woke. It's a word we hear a lot. I read an article in the Wall Street Journal just last week titled, "How Trump Can Rid Washington of Wokeness." And it started by giving a good definition of wokeness that I wanted to share. It says, quote, "Woke means believing America is riddled with inequities, where not only its people, but the system itself is racist and in need of systematic overhaul." I thought of President Obama's promise just before he was elected, where he said, "We are going to fundamentally transform the United States." I remember hearing that and not thinking that much about it, but he wasn't kidding. The article's definition went on, quote, this is on woke, what is woke? "Where society is divided between oppressors and the oppressed, where history must be expunged and rewritten." The crazy left-wing 1619 curriculum, and by the way, I think you're all oppressors. I do think we made some really good progress against the woke culture on November 5th, but the truth is it pervades our schools, our media, our popular culture, and will be a battle for our side for years and years to come. One of our summer interns this summer, who I had gotten to know, told me at her Midwest college, saying, "Men can't have babies," out loud, would likely get her thrown out of school. It's unbelievable. Biology isn't a game, yet some parents are taking extraordinary risks with their children, tinkering with nature. Let's hope the Supreme Court, who just heard a big case on this, get it right. Now, right here in Fairfax County, where I know a lot of you live, I think a lot of you remember the day, I remember it, when 11 of the 12 county school board members raised their hand to vote, no problem with boys using the girls' bathroom if they were feeling like girls. This child abuse of children, that's what I call it. It's politically correct child abuse when bizarre hormonal treatments and surgeries inflict permanent damage on girls and on boys. This child abuse, encouraging kids to try to change their sex, is an issue where, regardless of the Supreme Court decision, we are winning the hearts and minds of most people in America, and certainly recent voters, if you believe the polls. A majority of Americans are horrified by this, regardless of their policy views, conservative, liberal, or moderate. It's this notion, robbing girls of their privacy in toilets, in showers, in locker rooms, as well as their opportunities to win in athletics when they have to compete against boys who think they're girls. We're having some success now in beating this back. You all know boys have bigger bones, stronger muscles, bigger hearts. They're usually going to beat the girls in athletics. And we have some really outstanding speakers who are in our program here, our lecture program run by Lauren Husband back there. Wave, Lauren. They were forced to endure this, these speakers at their college. We send them out to tell of their first-hand experiences with this, including being forced to undress next to men, naked men with very visible men parts who claim to be women. Those are great ladies to send out as speakers. If you have daughters or granddaughters or anybody you know, they don't hear this point of view very much unless they watch Fox. So talk to Lauren. She's got a load of other great speakers as well. And finally, on this topic of celebrating the natural variations between men and women, before she starts to date, keep her safe by teaching how physical intimacy affects women very differently than men. We have a little booklet on this. It's called Sense and Sexuality, the College Girl's Guide to Real Promotion in a Hooked Up World. It's a play on Sense and Sensibility, Jane Austen's wonderful book about the Dashwood sisters and their love and romance and heartbreak. It was written for college girls, but it's used by young women as well. The truth is, in my 30 years here, it was the most requested book we ever produced. And it explains in very scientific and medical terms the truth about the differences between men and women in sexual intimacy. Much as I like a moralistic approach, I like to pound the desk and say, because God said so, you know. But this booklet's not that way in order to reach girls who haven't been raised to appreciate the traditional values as we have. Now, what do colleges tell students about it? Well, they say pretty much anything goes in the hookup culture as long as you, two things, use protection and get tested regularly. This is what they tell young women, 18, many of them away from home for the first time. It's so inadequate. It's so damaging to young women. The doctor who wrote this booklet was a physician at a California campus counseling center for more than 12 years. And she tells how women would come to her, young women would come to her, sometimes December or January of their freshman year, bright, attractive, athletic, girls from functional families. They had severe emotional problems. They had diseases, really messed up after promiscuous hooking up. And she'd tell them about the differences between men and women, and they'd say, if only I'd known, if only someone had told me. So we tell them in the book. We tell them about the medical biochemistry of attachment. This is real science. Girls have it and boys don't have it. And the truth is, if your girl is behaving, knowing the lessons in S&S could help her, help a friend who's heading down the wrong path, save her friend from some of the dreadful consequences of promiscuity, random hooking up, or even, to tell the truth, ladies, some of us know some older women who probably would benefit from reading this book. They're caught up in promiscuity. I always tell girls that for most of the most important decision they will make in the next 50 years is who they marry. And these behaviors relate very much to marriage. Parents, grandparents, friends, neighbors need to talk about these things to ensure our young women's best chances for professional success and personal success in their lives. So I hope you'll read the book. Pass it on to mothers and fathers who will learn more things to do about how to raise a conservative daughter. You can help her become a good communicator. If you have a phone, you can help her learn how to be a better speaker, how to present herself with strength and grace and dignity, and how to be a good, strong writer. And when she gets to college, or for some it's high school, encourage her to stand up for her beliefs, to be an activist. If you tell her, oh, just keep her head down, don't speak out, you're probably doing her a disservice. And there's many people and organizations to help her on her way, including the Luce Center, with our headquarters here and all of our programs. We've thrived by having in-person internships, not remote. It's face-to-face internships, discussions, lunches. We have mentoring, a lot of mentoring. I mean, I still hear from young women that were here 10 years ago. They're having success. They want help and advice, and we love to give it. We have seminars, become a better speaker, learn the Constitution, become a better writer, journalism workshops, trips to the gun range to learn gun safety and handling. And for some of the girls, they've never held a gun before. For others, they grew up in families where there was always one sitting on the dresser. But it's an incredible experience to do it, to have most of the trip is safety and how to, and then they get to go and shoot. It's an incredible experience. We have conferences, seminars. Kimberly just mentioned the incredible one we had in Tennessee, mentoring lunches, book clubs, and all kinds of preparation and guidance to turn our young women into strong, smart women and conservative leaders. We work together in person to promote conservative ideas, celebrate our great leaders, and train up the next generation of confident and courageous conservative women. So, to summarize now, then we'll do some questions. Don't assume your daughter or granddaughter will become a conservative because you are. Talk with her about important issues, and if you have to, read up on the issues. Make sure she understands that in America, our rights come from God, not government, and her source of self-worth is God. She's uniquely made and unconditionally loved by God, and this will be a cornerstone of a strong conservative woman. Help her to understand that a woman's differences from a man are her strengths. And if she's blessed with a good marriage and a child, she's done something wonderful. Teach her about money and how to manage it early. That's chapter 7. That's important because that also influences her policy views on spending and government. Make sure she's learned to read well in her early years and encourage her to read good books and see you reading good books. And have her do in-person social clubs and activities instead of being glued to her phone or computer for hours every day. Encourage her to join a church group and be involved in fulfilling pursuits like music, art, theater, and sports. And read some more. It'll make her brain grow. Take her to church and teach her about service to others. If you don't go to church, go and take her. Help her learn to be a good writer and speaker. And when she gets to college, encourage her to be an activist for her policy beliefs, promoting great conservative women like those in our calendar. Kimberly already held it up, but I'm going to hold it up again. This is a beautiful version of our calendar that was put together. Caitlin had the lead on it. I think a lot of people helped, but Caitlin, who sits right at the front desk, this was the first year she put it together. These are women's leaders that are never mentioned in women's studies or in feminist media. We can help a young woman bring these to speak at her school. A lecture is a great activity and has changed young women's lives, including mine. After I brought a woman a speaker, it wasn't a woman. We didn't have many women back then. It was way back. My senior year, it was way back there in the 70s. It literally changed the path of my life. It really did. I had planned to be a teacher, a noble profession. I don't want to discourage anybody who wants to be a teacher. Wonderful teachers are a rare and valuable thing. But I decided to be a policy activist, and I worked for Ronald Reagan for 8 years and the first George Bush, and then I founded the Luce Center, where we've helped thousands and thousands of young women gain the confidence and courage to be leaders. They promote our ideas and live happy lives with traditional conservative values. Our president, Kimberly, also brought in a conservative speaker. She mentioned that at Rutgers University, probably the most radical feminist university in America. She was very brave to do that as an undergraduate. And one day maybe I should give you details on that. Finally, raising a daughter is hard, and raising a conservative daughter is even harder. Parents can't just sit back and watch anymore. But the goal is not to force her to think in a certain way. It's to guide her to become the best person she can be while instilling conservative values. You need to think about your conservative values and how to instill them through practical real-life applications like those in How to Raise a Conservative Daughter. Thank you, and I welcome your questions and comments now.
My hairstylist has a young daughter, and she's at 11 years old spending a ton of money on makeup, including foundation, which is insanity. So I love that your book has a chapter about money.
Yeah.
Now, this 11-year-old doesn't have a job, but someone's giving her money, and I wish that we talked more about what we spend our money on.
Well, I think that's excellent, and you're going to enjoy reading the chapter. You haven't read it yet. Yeah. Well, money, fiscal conservatism, our policy views about money, is a product of money management issues learned early in childhood. Today's children, it's very tempting, and I'm guilty myself. We give our kids more than our parents gave us because we have more. But learning to earn your own money, she's only 11, but she could probably babysit. Saving the makeup experimentation gifts for a birthday, perhaps, or Christmas. It's a challenge. And the other thing is probably the other girls with her are doing it. The phone, right. Well, see, 16. Wait till she's 16. That's it. My Josephine. Oh, I hope they stick with that. It's a huge challenge. It's very hard, but I guess I would fault the parents if they're the ones giving her the money just to do the makeup. Experimentation is fine. A lot of girls like to do that. They start when they're quite young. But if she has to earn that money and then go buy, the $15 compact or whatever, it's going to mean a lot more to her. So that's what I would have you suggest to your hairdresser. And if we have enough, I am happy to give you an extra copy for her, and I'll write a message in. I think we have enough. And just say we were thinking about her and wishing her the best, and especially read this chapter on managing money. It's a challenge, I know. Yes.
You mentioned that the book starts off talking about how having a understanding that the woman's self-worth comes from God is important.
Yes.
What is your advice to reach some of my friends who maybe don't believe in God? So starting there is hard enough, let alone saying, don't you see how many taxes come out of your paycheck?
Right. Well, I think one of the things, it's hard. That's a challenge, especially if they have no religious background in their family. Sometimes they have a grandmother that you could encourage that. But can you get them to go to church with you? And maybe pick a fun service where there's going to be a sermon perhaps about something relevant to them, or if there's a youth group and there's some cute guys there or whatever. I think you have to bring people in slowly, and that's why this book, I wish it were moralistic, but it's not, and it's more effective not being moralistic. You have to find some things to come, and they're probably kind. You go down the 10 Commandments. They probably believe in both of those. Maybe that's a good discussion. Did you know, even though you don't go to church, you really live your life according to these 10 Commandments, and that's a wonderful thing. Look for things in common to bring them in. And, self-esteem is okay. Have a good self-esteem. But it's not anywhere near, the self-work. It's a deep understanding of yourself as a human being, and it places the value of the individual outside of the reach of cultural forces and government. And replacing it with self-esteem, which is a big part of that, is that you look to others for your validation. It's not the most important thing for young women. I would say look for the common things, take her with you to church or youth group, and try to bring her in. It's a miracle sometimes what happens, and people's hearts are filled with God and an understanding of how key that is to happiness in life. Yes?
One next.
Okay.
So in regards to dating, if your daughter came home and fell into the trap of dating a leftist guy, how would you react to that if it was a genuine connection? Would you encourage her to leave or just wait to see if she figures it out?
I would make sure she understood sort of basic conservative ideas and that she could discuss them with the fella. What we've found about leftists is often that their understanding is about that deep. It's cliches, it's what they hear from their teachers, from their professors, from the media, from the entertainment world, whereas conservatives tend to be deeper. And if she can get a little deeper, pick one or two issues and help her become more informed in that, and then discuss it with the fella. I don't know how old she is, but you know, if she's 15 or something, or 17, he'll probably be gone, you know. But she can learn something in the process. I think it's hard to say, no, you can't date him because he's a leftist. It's happened. It would be more, don't date him because he's violent or whatever. He uses drugs. He's drinking illegally. He drives like a maniac. Those would be, her safety. But in terms of beliefs and philosophy, I try to encourage her to pick a couple issues, become knowledgeable, things he cares about. Life. Okay, that's a great one. Because a lot of liberal guys have never heard or even thought about the notion that this is another little person. It's not part of your body. It's another human being. And you have a responsibility for it. God put it in you, not in him. So does that sound good? Pick a couple issues. Have her call me. I'd be happy to talk to her. I don't think I ever dated a leftist, but back when I was growing up, I'm going to be 75 this year. The policy things, there was so much more agreement with people. The teachers, they believed what we believed. Most parents believed. And so you didn't have this split like our country is right now. So it's hard. It's hard. I'll be happy to talk to her. Oh, okay.
Hi, one of my friends, she has a daughter who's on the autistic high-end spectrum. Family is divorced. Is there, because I'm thinking of giving my book to her because I don't have a daughter either. Is that issue addressed in your book, or is
No.
it the same thing? But
It's not, except that, she's a
it's
child.
probably, you guys just
Yeah.
have to read the book
Right.
and
She
figure
can
out.
read. She's autistic, but she can read.
I think, yes, she
Yeah.
can, and her parents are conservative.
God bless
She
her.
goes to a Christian school, so.
Right.
But I think a book like that might add. And I'm just wondering is there any differences and stuff like that, just because they're autistic on a high level scale.
I don't think there are differences generally. And if she's not able to read it, maybe her mom can reach it, or you can read it to her and, pick out key parts, like this talk. I mean, I could talk for 6 hours on the book, but just pick out whatever you think might be most important, behaviors, belief in God, things like that.
Thank you so much for this, Michelle. As you probably know, I believe that the fear of ostracism is really, becoming a social reject and all of that is really the most powerful force in what causes men, but especially women, to go off in these really noxious directions. So my question for you is, I'm just curious if you feel you can gauge the amount of progress, the conservative movement and, the Boothe Center in particular has made against these noxious peer influences, because that's what I believe really drives so much of this, because most women, I think, are conservative at heart.
Yes.
Can you gauge, I think this election showed more and more people are less fearful of speaking out. And we just have to keep that up, but wondering if you have something to add to that.
I don't have data, numbers for you. We did do a poll right when I was shifting out and Kimberly was shifting in. Kellyanne Conway did it. And we found that there was huge amount of conservative women belief, even women who call themselves liberal, about things like marriage, about things like crime. There are common areas. And one of our failures, I think, as conservatives is not to be able to reach these women who share our beliefs in some areas. Now, whether you like President Trump or not, I think he did it with a number of people who had just seen themselves as leftists, but it came with, men in the girls' rooms. It came with Biden's inflation. and the horrible crime from the illegal aliens in the country. And he did a pretty good job of bringing those people over. And we need to work at that as well. Now, how do we get the opportunity to address young women? Well, let's bring your friend with you to a lecture. We hear stories about somebody who was silent little mouse for years of college, but later she says, I really felt affirmed. I just was too afraid to talk about it. And, I live my life as a traditional conservative. So I'm certain we're having an impact. I think we're having a really big impact. I don't have numbers for you other than the poll that Kellyanne did. That was a great big poll that showed a lot of women that call themselves liberal hold core conservative beliefs. And I think we're making a difference. Every time we put a conservative woman out to speak, every time we do something, Kimberly's done a great job and the staff on social media putting the conservative ideas out there. And as individuals, you take your friend with you. Your roommate, your friend, she doesn't know, I don't know. Well, come and hear this. And she hears it for the first time, that a baby is a human life and not just an appendage in a body. And she thinks about it, and they don't change their mind instantly, but what we want is people thinking about their core beliefs, and we're bringing them over.
Well, the transgender issue in particular, there
Yes.
seems to be, I think Dr. Miriam Grossman the other day was talking about how it feels as though there has been huge progress. And I
Yes.
think it's speaking out. People
Yes.
like Riley Gaines and others
Yes.
emboldening others
Right.
to speak out.
And you see these college teams where they forfeit the game, but most of them don't yet. Well, the girls are on scholarships. They probably wouldn't be in college but for the athletic scholarship. But even lefty liberals are horrified that their daughter has to get dressed next to a naked man with the flag at full mast, or however you want to say it. I mean, it's disgusting. All right, anything else?
And with that, that's all the time we have for questions. Thank you so much, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle. That was wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you for writing this book. Thank you for all you've done for the Luce Center and for America's young women. It is a tradition here that we always give our wonderful mug with our favorite quote from Clare Boothe Luce written on it. And Michelle, would you like to read the quote for everyone?
Courage is the ladder on which all the other virtues mount.
Isn't that
And
great?
that's what we try to teach some of the girls that are with us, to be courageous.
Thanks again. You can meet us right outside, and Michelle will sign your copy of your book. Thank you.